Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Let's talk to our Deputy Political Editor, John Pienaar, who's in Westminster for us this evening. So, John, this flooding has been going on for days, but today it's become an election issue.
Yes, it has. I mean, this crisis has been rapidly politicised today, and maybe the only surprise in the middle of a close and unpredictable campaign is that it's taken this long. Certainly, if these areas have been neglected, and the Prime Minister's denied that just in the last few moments, they haven't lacked political attention today. The Prime Minister, after that committee meeting, promising cash for individuals and businesses. Labour and the Liberal Democrats promising to write extra cheques for flood defence, 5 billion. The Liberal Democrats, 5.6 billion, the Labour Party. And Jeremy Corbyn, he's been tapping into a familiar line of complaint, accusing the Conservatives of being keener to look after people and places in the south and southeast than in the north. Keen to look after their own, in other words. Now, Boris Johnson, he denies that too, and Tories say it's point scoring. Well, it may be fair to say that they're keen, all the keener to rebut that accusation, since so many crucial electoral battlegrounds are in the Midlands and the north. Now, while people battle with these floodwaters, who's winning this political struggle? Now, the simple and obvious answer is that people will decide in whom to place their trust. They will have the last word when they cast their votes on December the 12th.
John at Westminster, thank you. The Labour Party's online operations are reported to have been hit by a second cyber attack following one yesterday. Mr Corbyn, who was on the election campaign trail in Doncaster and Blackpool today, said the attacks attempting to swamp Labour's online platforms with traffic to try to take it offline were very serious. But he said they'd failed and there has been no data breach. With a month to go until voters go to the polls, we're travelling across the UK, hearing about what matters to local communities. Today, we're in County Durham, and Clive Myrie is in Bishop Auckland for us. Clive.
Yes, Fiona, we're in the Market Square here in the town of Bishop Auckland, and the wider constituency is named after the town. Now, there's a proud history rooted in the railways and coal mining, and it's also been seen in recent years as a barometer of political sentiment for the rest of the northeast of England. Now, we've been here for a couple of days, and there is a palpable frustration on the part of traditional Labour voters that we've been speaking to about how the party nationally is handling Brexit. Now, the constituency is a mixture of post-industrial towns, pretty market towns and agricultural rural communities. Historically, it's been a Labour stronghold in the general elections, and barring 4 years in the 1930s, Labour has held Bishop Auckland since 1918. But this majority has been slowly whittled away over the years. Now, it's down to just over 500 votes, and that's made it a key Conservative target in this election. And when it comes to Brexit, it was a decisive vote here, with 61% of people choosing to leave the EU. Well, I've been meeting voters to hear what their views are in an area many say that Westminster has forgotten. He mattered once. The miner who kept our lights on, kept us all warm. But the Davy lamps and black seams they illuminated underground, a history. Relics in Bishop Auckland's Museum of Mining. It's an industry long dead in these parts, and ever since an excuse, say locals, for politicians to forget this place. When coal was king, so was the local football team.
White-shirted Bishop Auckland in the Amateur Cup final at Wembley.
The fans, working miners and families, their political allegiance always to Labour.
The whistle's gone and Bishop Auckland have made their hat-trick.
But there's been disappointment at the forgetting that this place exists since the pits closed, when the football was good. And now there's anger for some at this working men's club that Labour's handling of Brexit, they say, is a final kick in the teeth. Ask Kevin, an NHS hospital worker switching from Labour to Tory.
It's not just me being ignored or the North East, it's the 17.4 million people who voted to leave.
And you're fed up of that?
Absolutely fed up. I've had it up to here.
Ask Shannon, silent witness to thousands of conversations.
I think a lot of people will end up voting Conservative rather than Labour, yeah, from what I'm hearing. I normally vote Labour.
How are you thinking you might go this time?
I'm undecided.
And ask John, unhappy but unable to bring himself to vote Conservative. What about the Brexit Party?
Well, to me, I don't like Farage. Then again, I don't like Corbyn. I don't like Johnson.
You're a bit stuck there, aren't you? Sounds as if you might reluctantly end up voting Labour again.
Probably yes.
The Brexit Party candidates standing here could split the Leave vote. But as allegiances shift, a changing of the political weather wouldn't be down to just Brexit. Years of neglect will play their part too. Auckland Castle, with its priceless paintings, has been restored with money from a local multi-millionaire. Jonathan Ruffer is also financing museums, galleries, gardens, shaming past governments of all stripes.
The purpose of what we're doing is to help a community find itself. County Durham has been under the cosh for a long time, but what we knew was that this was about people. It wasn't about buildings, pictures, anything else. And if you care for people, they respond.
Bishop Auckland are currently mid-table in the Northern Football League. But how to bring back the glory days? Better jobs, futures for young people, hope. That's what next month's election is all about. The views there of some of the very hospitable folk that we've been talking to here while we've been in Bishop Auckland. Well, with me is the BBC's political editor for the North Eastern Cumbria, Richard Moss. Richard, just how much trouble could Labour be in?
Well, if you talk to Labour candidates in seats like this across the North East, they'll tell you they're facing two problems on the doorstep. One, won't surprise you, is Brexit. The other one, is Jeremy Corbyn. Although they sometimes, the voters on the doorstep, like some of Labour's policies, they have a personal animosity towards the Labour leader, can't bring themselves to vote for him. So that's the challenge they face. And in addition, the Conservatives have learnt the lessons from 2017 and realised that just banging on about Brexit is not enough in constituencies like this. They need to promise investment. Boris Johnson was in the North East last week, talked about extra police officers, investment in schools and hospitals. But the Tories face challenges. They thought they were going to make loads of gains here in 2017. They didn't, because they underestimated the Labour electoral machine and the history that is here. And the other problem they've got, of course, is the Brexit Party, who are still standing in seats like this one. Now, they may also take votes from Labour, but ask candidates, Conservative candidates in seats like this, if they like the Brexit Party to stand down, they bite their hands off. And that is a challenge. So the links with Labour are strained here, but are they broken yet? Well, the Conservatives won't take that for granted until the votes are counted on December the 12th in the early morning of the 13th.
All right, Richard, thank you. Richard Moss, our political editor for the region here. So a fascinating constituency come election night, of course. We'll bring you all of the details of what's going to be happening here. And with that, Fiona, it's back to you in the studio.
Clive in Bishop Auckland, thank you.
Well, so much for a Leave alliance so far. The Brexit Party leader, Nigel Farage, has dismissed Conservative calls for his candidates to stand aside in key Labour marginals as almost comical. However, Mr Farage did suggest a quid pro quo, urging Tories to withdraw from seats they had no hopes of winning. But the prospect of a pact might already be worrying Labour. Today, Jeremy Corbyn was campaigning in Blackpool South, a heavily Brexit-supporting area, setting out his education plans. From there, our political correspondent Liz Bates reports, and a warning: there is flash photography from the start.
In the spotlight and in his comfort zone, Jeremy Corbyn was today setting out Labour policies to the Labour faithful. But with a Brexit alliance forming in the background, can these announcements cut through in Leave areas like Blackpool South?
You see, I see education as an escalator running alongside you throughout your life, that you can get on and off whenever you want. That's what Labour's National Education Service will offer people. Free education as a right for all.
In marginal seats like this one, Nigel Farage's decision to keep on fighting could boost Labour. But Mr Corbyn didn't seem particularly grateful for the help.
The reality is that you need him and the Brexit Party in seats like this to split the Leave vote and to give Labour candidates a chance to hold on here. So are you privately happy that Brexit Party candidates are still standing in Labour marginals?
If after this election you have a Tory government with the support of Nigel Farage, you will still have oversized classes, you will still have hungry children going into school. You will still have young people going into tens of £1,000s worth of debt just because they wanted to get to university. Farage and Johnson only offer division, division, division.
Gordon Marsden was first elected as the Labour MP here in 1997, well before Brexit, and he is confident that Labour's election strategy will persuade voters to keep him here beyond Brexit.
What we're trying to do here today is present them a whole suite of possibilities in terms of things that will make their lives better, not simply the endless wrangle about tactics between Nigel Farage and Trump and Boris Johnson.
The Brexit Party hopeful dropped off his registration form at the town hall this afternoon.
Hello.
Hiya.
Nice to meet you, I'm Liz.
And you, hiya.
He's one of 300 to be signed off by Brexit Party bosses across the country today.
In a seat like this, the Labour majority is so small that having a Brexit Party candidate could split that Leave vote and keep that Labour MP in here.
It's a nearly 70% Leave. I think this is a prime site for a Brexit Party MP, and we need a Brexit Party MPs in the House of Commons. Nice Blackpool weather. To hold the government to task. It's as simple as that, because nobody has faith in the Conservatives to deliver Brexit.
Also trying not to be blown off course is the Conservative candidate, whose message appears to be landing.
For the first time ever, you're thinking of voting
I am
Conservative.
Voting Conservative, yes.
Yeah. And what is the reason for that?
It's because I want to come out, and everybody's so sick of this. Really sick of it, and if I voted Liberal, well, they want to stay in, so I'm just contradicting myself, aren't I?
Yeah. So what do you think about the fact that there's a Brexit Party candidate standing in this seat, and that could stop the Tories getting in?
Well, no, I want the Tories to get in.
Yeah.
I mean, something's got to be sorted out. The country's in a mess.
People are very canny in this part of the world, and they know that a vote for Nigel Farage is a vote for more confusion, more chaos and more delay. There's two people who can be Prime Minister, Boris Johnson or Jeremy Corbyn, and if you believe in leaving the European Union, a vote for Boris is the only way to guarantee that.
As the election rolls on, Labour is promising to change the country. But to do that, they also need to change the conversation away from Brexit.
Liz Bates, well, this programme has tonight learned of a breaking development on the Remain side of the political aisle. The Liberal Democrat candidate Tim Walker has told us he has taken the unilateral decision to stand down in the Labour marginal seat of Canterbury, saying he does not wish to challenge the Remain supporting Labour candidate there. We understand this isn't a national policy by the Liberal Democrats.
Well, let's go back to the campaign proper. And there was a bit of a bombshell from one Liberal Democrat candidate tonight in a very marginal constituency currently held by Labour. Tim Walker said he wanted to avoid the nightmare, as he put it, of handing the seat back to the Conservatives by splitting the anti-Tory vote. So he is standing down. Rachel Younger is reporting on the Lib Dem campaign, of course, and she joins us from Cardiff tonight. Rachel, this is rather an interesting test case for Jo Swinson, is it not?
Yeah, I think this is deeply tricky territory for Jo Swinson, and that's because the overriding message of the Liberal Democrat election campaign is that they are the only party to plump for if you want to stop Brexit. Yet tonight she has a candidate standing down to do exactly that, a personal decision, he says, only to have the rug pulled under his feet by the National Party, who say they will simply replace him with another candidate. I can tell you that is going down incredibly badly on the ground in Canterbury. We understand from the local Liberal Democrat Party there, they were already very reluctant to stand anyone against a deeply pro-Remain Labour incumbent, because remember, this is the most marginal of seats, and any danger of splitting that Remain vote leaves the chance of a very hard Tory Brexiteer MP to come in, and that is why the Liberal Democrat has said he is standing down. I think what's happening here tonight underlines a really serious problem for the Liberal Democrats and the pro-Remainers as a whole, because of course in the last few days we've seen the Brexit Party agreeing not to stand in 300 Tory seats. They don't want to split the Leave vote and yet you don't have the same equivalent, with Labour refusing to be in the mix for the Liberal Democrats. I think the danger here is for Jo Swinson that it muddies the message. It makes it seem like they are possibly more interested in winning seats than actually preventing Brexit. She is slipping in the polls, and what she really needs right now is a bit of momentum, not to be in danger of losing the goodwill of wavering Remain voters.
Rachel, it is a fascinating test case. Thank you very much indeed. Well, problems for the Lib Dems this evening there and earlier in the day for the Labour Party, who said their computer systems had suffered not one but two cyber attacks in the past 24 hours. Party leader Jeremy Corbyn said it could be a sign of things to come in the campaign. Its digital platforms were bombarded with electronic messages to try to make it crash, but that didn't happen. The National Cyber Security Centre said there was no evidence of state-sponsored activity. All right, well, at the last election in 2017, the Conservatives won 13 seats in Scotland, their highest showing since 1983. But the squeeze is on from the Scottish National Party over both independence and Brexit, as Peter was suggesting just there. So, to try to work out how it might all pan out, our national editor, Allegra Stratton, has the background in the latest of her Battleground reports.
£70, 72, 4, 6... 8, 78, 80, £80.
They're used to counting here in Peterhead's fish market, and they're experts at counting votes too. This election is the 5th in 6 years. Apart from 1 year off, there's been a poll in Scotland every year since 2014. How many seats will the SNP stack up? And are the Tories heading to the deep freeze? Like here in Banff-and-Buchan.
Well, I hope everyone votes for Boris. Let's just leave, let's get it done. We're a laughing stock of the world just now. Just let's get it done.
This icy market is a fierce battleground. An SNP minister was even visiting at the same time as us. They think they can win it back.
Why are you going to vote for the SNP?
Because I'm Scottish. But he was the minority. This area was firmly part of the SNP fleet, held by the party for 30 years. But Brexit broke the bond. What's the weather like out there at the moment?
Well, the last few days has been quite nice.
Stephen is heading to fish in the North Sea this afternoon for 7 days.
I don't like some of the policies of the Tories, you know. When you hear some company directors in this country earning 270 times of what a normal worker earns, it's totally out of sync with what it should be. If you're going to hunker me down, I probably will vote for the Conservative Party, but just because of Europe.
Referendums crowd the horizon. If northeastern coastal seats embrace the impact of Brexit, southern seats want the still waters of the Union and the 2014 IndyRef respected too. But 62% here voted Remain, and the SNP believes Brexit could break up the UK.
Here in Arbroath, Scottish lords declared independence from the English 700 years ago, and the fight goes on. Right now the seat is Conservative, but with heritage like this, surely Nicola Sturgeon can win it back.
People like Eddie are certainly trying.
The mood is for independence. I think we're well over 50%. And Nicola's a very, very good politician. She just has to bide her time, basically. It'll happen.
Once the SNP had almost every seat, now just 35. So I'm calling Colin. How will they do this time?
She's not going to wipe the Conservatives out, as happened a dozen, 15 years ago in Scotland, but she needs to win seats from them, she needs to win seats from Labour. If they get to 45 or even above, she will think she's had a good election. It gives her a justification to call on the British government to say, give me another referendum.
If Sturgeon hopes Brexit puts new fire under demands for independence, for some, Brexit has been such a mess, it's actually put out the flame.
I do a lot of trade with England. So if Scotland to pull away from England and then go with Europe, would there be tariffs for trade going to England? You know, that's the worrying point.
Night falls even earlier on the northeast coast, but there's little sleepy about it. Scotland may back Boris and help Brexit happen, or Sturgeon and help independence. Even in the half-light, they can see change coming. Allegra Stratton, News at 10, Arbroath.